I am Linda van Tilburg for National Security News, and I have Kobus Marais, a defence analyst and former Democratic Alliance Shadow Minister of Defence, with me in the NSN studio. Well, today we're discussing the defence and foreign policy of the Government of National Unity, examining some recent developments. Kobus, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely, Linda. It's my pleasure. Nice to talk to you again and your viewers.
Well, let's start with the recent decision by South Africa to block what is reported to be the transfer of ammunition shells from the German arms company Rheinmetall to Poland. Well, what can you tell us about that decision?
Yes, it's actually a transfer of ammunition shells from Rheinmetall the NEL. So in other words, the South African affiliate of Rheinmetall, who is a very, very successful munitions company in its own right. It's a company where Rheinmetall AG in Germany has got 51% shares, and the NEL still has got 49% shares. So for many years, that was the dividends out of RDM and other companies like Hensoldt were kind of the only operational revenue that the NEL has received. So the requirements of the United Nations and our NCAC Act is that we cannot export ammunitions and armament and prime mission equipment to countries where there are current conflicts and human rights abuses, things like that in line with the UN regulations and resolutions. Now, in this case of Poland, any country has got the right to arm and defend itself, and that is not excluded from those stipulations and the resolutions. So, in other words, there should be no reason why the NCACC do not grant RDM an export permit to ship to Poland. What is obviously, the underlying reasons are let's call it the doubt within the NCACC and by implication the ANC government of the past that Poland would transfer those shells and munitions to Ukraine. And we know that, which side of the fence the ANC government is with regards to the Russian-Ukraine conflict and the war. So you will recall, when was it last year, the year before that the president was on his trips of, facilitating this talks between Russia and Ukraine, and the aircraft that stopped in Poland and Warsaw, and where there were quite a number of these special agents or special forces being stopped there, and where some of the ammunition was taken away. So there's obviously a diplomatic, call it a stiffness between the countries, and then obviously the unjust and in my opinion there's no justification from law or otherwise to not grant that permit. That would have been so beneficial not only to RDM but to South African industry and obviously for us earning foreign currency. So that's, in my opinion, very short-sighted, because the whole system has got supposed to be good checks and balances in it, like the end-user certificate. And I mean, as your listeners might know, the end-user certificate is a certificate issued by the government of the country where the importers are. So in other words, in terms of that end-user certificate, they know it's illegal and unacceptable to sell onwards without the approval of the export nation. And the end-user certificate allows any country via the diplomatic channels to arrange for inspections of those ammunitions and weapons and armament to make sure that it is still being used or held in the state and for the reason and purpose it was initially imported. Now, why they don't do that, I don't know. And whether it is to score points with Russia, to make Poland weaker, I think that's very short-sighted, because we know that they will just buy it from other countries. We know that the Rheinmetall is setting up a factory and a plant similar to RDM in Spain. So and the European Union is allowed not only to sell to Poland but also to Ukraine. So in other words, our loss is their gain, and it's very short-sighted, and it's in a time where our defense industry actually needs more opportunities to export.
Well, and Danel needs more money.
Absolutely. And this would have been an opportunity for them to get some more dividends in the future. And any of these opportunities not being capitalized on, obviously, can only jeopardize themselves.
Well, can we move on to another event that took place? Admiral Monde Lobese's visit to Iran to meet with his counterpart. And there's concern that this could send the wrong signal to the West, especially, given the tension at the moment between Israel and Iran.
My first opinion is that the defense policy, relationships, visits, etc., must always be in support of our foreign policy and in the interest of our most important trading partners, international trading partners. Now, that is maybe where the disjunction comes in. We know that South African government is pleading with America not to exclude us from the AGOA agreement. We know that from a trade surplus point of view and a value-added trade surplus, we are absolutely dependent on America, the European Union, and the UK as our most important trading partners. China is also an important trading partner, but we don't earn a surplus from those trade actions taking place. So in other words, it's costing us money. The more we do business, the less money we have. The more we do with America, European Union, and the UK, the wealthier we will become. And my view was always, if the ANC government wanted to move away from these lucrative value-added markets to, for instance, China and the East and Russia, surely in more than 30 years they could have engineered that and achieved that. Clearly it was not, and it was not available to them. We also know that the conflict, especially in Israel, but also in Ukraine, are driven by proxy warlords, if I can use that phrase, or war principles. Mm-hmm. And we know the conflict between Hamas and Israel is a proxy war from Iran. Iran supply them with money, Iran supply them with ammunition, Iran supply them with training, and it's focused at America and the West. And so in other words, Israel is the proxy representative of those countries. So in other words, Iran is seen as one of the major adversaries or threats to the security of America and the European Union and the UK. So why would we then do that? Obviously, the foreign relations policy, what I sometimes refer to as the Pandor direction, was very much in favor of the Palestinians and Russia and China, irrespective of the realities. So, and we know that was based more on historical, ideological relationships and views than the current challenges and how we can resolve this. One must also remember that Iran and Russia are very close allies, and wherever any one of them are involved, whether it's in the Middle East or even in Africa, we know that there's a lot of conflicts in West Africa and Central Africa, Northern Africa, so much more than that they are much more in the limelight or in the attention limelight, if I can use that phrase, than South Africa and, for instance, Mozambique and even the DRC. But they are involved, and they are close partners. So wherever one of them are involved, then one must expect what is around the corner. The Chinese, one must remember, is a very much more subtle force. I haven't had the experience that they are looking for conflict, although they are arming themselves to the teeth, and they want to be one of the major defense forces in the world. And we know that, their presence in the South China Sea, for instance, and in many other parts are to show, what kind of muscle they've got and the capabilities that they've got. I know that in China there are enormous capabilities of manufacturing Navy vessels and other armament, capabilities. Now, our needs from others are predominantly naval, because we don't have really the capability to build. We have got some, like Daman and the SA shipyards in Durban, but not to the extent that a Navy can build capability. So you need the Germans or the Chinese or whoever. And they are very much in a very subtle way busy with their modern way of imperialism, where they will provide loans, they will provide the construction company, all the materials, all the workers for railways, for harbors, for airports, for government buildings, and so they tie that government in, and most of the times they can't refund all of those debts, and then the Chinese take over the running of that facility, whether it's at the airport or a harbor or a railway, and that gives them a strong foothold in that country, and to a strong way of negotiating and leverage. But the Russians are very much in your face, blatant propaganda, blatant conflict, not much regard for human rights, whereas the Chinese might do it very subtly and like kind of covertly. The Russians are in your face, and what is happening in the Middle East is an extension of that and of Iran.
Well, you mentioned about Chinese influence in Africa, and at the moment there's a Chinese hospital naval ship in Cape Town at the VA in a harbour. So, what is that doing here?
I've asked myself the question, what is the purpose, and what can we gain from that? And especially where it's a naval ship, and in other words, military health services, what can we gain from that? What can we learn from that we can apply to improve our own service delivery and capabilities? With the current budget constraints, medical health services in the military is already one of the biggest expense line items. So there will probably be a major restructuring of the military health services in the sense of the 3 military hospitals, the service levels that can provide it, and what can be transferred, for instance, to provincial hospitals. So there are little that we can gain from that, other than it's part of the program of the Chinese of showing their influence and their friendships around the world. One must remember, you will recall Exercise Mosey a couple of years ago between South African Navy, Russia, and China. And my view at that stage was also, what can we learn from that? Absolutely nothing. It was an opportunity for Russia for propaganda. You recall that they have their TASS, official government news agency, announced that they will launch the supersonic or hypersonic missile, which is incredibly dangerous, and especially if it has been used in the Ukraine war, that South Africa can be held liable for working together with them, which never happened eventually, but they used it as propaganda. They had some of their most advanced naval vessels here, and they announced that in advance. The Chinese, on the other side, also had very new vessels, very capable vessels. They didn't announce that and kind of subtly just moved into news. Suddenly we're just aware, oh, goodness, they are also here and look what they've got. I think that was obviously to show America and the West of what they can do in the southern point of Africa. But from China's point of view, remember, they are an ally of Russia, but they also must position themselves against Russia. So, that they show that they are stronger and that Russia should not even try to enter their borders or to, start with a conflict with them. So, yes, I think that is again, you will recall there's another ship, much newer one, that also sail around our coast. There was initially expectations that vessel might also dock in Cape Town, but it sailed past Cape Town. So, in other words, they've used one of their older vessels to stop in South Africa, and that was more a PR exercise, in my opinion. And one must remember, all of those nations, they have got their very capable intelligence systems and officers, and it's an ideal opportunity with a vessel like that to have local interactions under disguise of, just a naval medical ship that visits South Africa and wants to do some good to the local population.
So what are the dangers of continuing what you call the Naledi Pandor foreign policy?
Well, first of all, as I've said, we have got this challenge with AGOA. We cannot afford to be excluded from AGOA. That will be devastating to our agricultural industry, our car manufacturing, our other value-added markets that we sell to America. So it is critically important that we stay part of that. When you look at also the European Union, so we want to retain those markets. It is critically important. We can't do without that. So in other words, we have to, in my opinion, the Pandor direction was very much against the most important trade interest of South Africa. Even the arms trade and defense industry in South Africa are all based on NATO standards and not Eastern Bloc or Chinese standards or Russian standards or North Korean standards. So it's based on NATO standards. So if you want to jeopardize all those sales and markets and investments, try to support in the adversaries of NATO, and you will just alienate our customers more and more. So now we've got a new minister as foreign relations, and he's younger. I think he's much more on the side of President Ramaphosa. I think he is much more pragmatic, and hopefully he will be much more acceptable to look at a deviation of the hardline Pandor direction. One must also remember that the government of national unity is certainly, in this short period of time, seems like it's doing much better. And there's stronger positive indications from investors and even share markets and bonds and things like that. So it looks better. So Ramaphosa knows that he actually needs this. On the other hand, the DA, Freedom Front Plus, and especially PA, have been incredibly outspoken in favor of the Ukrainian side against Russia and very much in favor of Israel against the Palestinians. And while the DA has always said, the two-state solutions is still the best one, all of them have said that Israel has got a right to defend itself, and Israel has got a a right to make sure that their citizens are safe from attacks like we have seen on the 7th of October. So if there is not a change in the direction of the government of national unity, those three government of national unity parties will have to answer to the electorate with the coming elections, in 2 years, and then eventually in 5 years again. So that's going to be a challenge for John and Peter Groenewald and for Gayton McKenzie and their parties, and how they will do that. So otherwise, but there's going to be a fine balance to act to do by the president and his government of national unity. Some of the wrong direction elements will have to be retained, and hopefully they will start to move away from this hardline Pandor directions. So yeah, very interesting times, but that will also be a challenge for the success and the sustainment of the government of national unity.
Kobus Marais, thank you so much for speaking to us.
It is my pleasure. It's always so stimulating. I have thought in advance, how should I prepare myself? And now I realize that would have been fruitless exercise.